Well, whatever.
Now
You
we're
might
live.
hold it to the next meeting, I would say.
Okay,
Yeah, we're live now.
all right. Good evening, everyone. This is Patsy Brescia opening the meeting of the April 10th meeting of the Norwalk Charter Revision Commission. And let me do the roll call here. So obviously I am here. Mr. McQuaid is not present. Carl Dickens,
Here,
Benita Raleigh Watford,
Here.
and Michael Witherspoon. I don't see him present at the moment. And so there are 4 members present, so we do have a quorum. I'm looking at the minutes of March 29th. And I have several corrections, and as we do not have a quorum to vote on the minutes, because Mr. Tyler Fairburn was not present at this meeting, we'll hold them over until our next meeting. So if all of the commissioners will be sure to read them and be prepared to make any comments. They were lengthy and quite important, so I wanted to make sure they're accurate.
point of order, Chairman.
Yes. Carl?
Tyler can't vote on him at any time since he wasn't here, right?
Yes, that's what I just said.
No, yes, you did say that, but all I'm asking is that since we're not gonna vote on, can we go on and go through what your changes are and we can write them down, then we'll be prepared totally the next time to vote on changes that you think needed to be made.
Steve, do you have any comment on that?
Why don't you just wait until the next meeting when you can just do it and vote on it? It doesn't make a lot of
I've
sense.
got a
We
lot
have
to
a lot of
cover
other, we have a lot of
tonight,
business to cover tonight, so
All right,
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
easy.
Okay, thank you.
don't mean to be contradictory with my good friend Carl, but you know.
So, Steve, you want to lead us through the first
Yeah.
discussion?
Yeah, let's go through there, and I will put this up on the screen if that's helpful to everybody.
Yeah, before you start, let me just make a comment that we did, as a commission, send out a article outlet to the Norwalk Hour outlining, and to Nancy on Norwalk, outlining where we are in this process and how it will move forward. And unfortunately, to date, I have not seen it in the Hour. So maybe we can try again somehow to get some coverage for this important undertaking for the city.
May I say one thing on that?
Sure.
So I watched the recording of the last meeting, the one I didn't attend, the March 29th. And we did get our publication out in Norwalk, which was great. I think one of the unintended consequences is that some of the attention it brought, I think, kind of stirred up some confusion and maybe conspiracies among some people. And I wanted to address 2 things super quickly. And I don't know if I should do it now.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the first is there was I think originally we had intended to have a public hearing on March 5th.
Right.
When we set out our schedule, we very early on in this process made a change to meet on the 1st and 3rd Wednesday, right? To make it easier for people rather than just every other Wednesday, which would have led to some kind of funky dates. The April 5th date was not in any way scheduled to keep people from commenting. Somebody wrote something along those lines online. That was just one of our dates. When we realized that it was close to the school break and the holidays, we moved it. So, if anybody's watching this recording or watching live right now, please understand that that date wasn't selected to discourage comment by any means. It was just a date that we had set early on in the process, and we realized it was a conflict. It changed. The other thing was that, I've seen a couple of comments, and I heard a comment at the March 29th meeting that, the Charter Revision Commission is moving beyond its original intention, which was just to clean up language. That was never the intention. It has not been, it is not now. The charter is in need of much more than just cleaning up the language. All of those things we've discussed at the meetings. Any proposed changes we've made are public, not made, but recommended rather. So I want to be clear also there for anybody who's watching this or reads the minutes or whatever, that it was never the intention strictly to clean up language. And I think it's important that people understand that. And you know, finally, you know, I spoke with Zuma or emailed Zuma about, you know, the comments we've received through the web, and so far there have not been many, if any. So
And Zuma is our assistant.
is the assistant on the city side, you know, replacing Jordan. So you know, to the extent that people have suggestions, I would encourage everybody to please send them in on the website, or, you know, come to the hearing on the 19th. But you know, if you don't submit a comment, we can't consider it and can't take it into account. So Zoom will be, as I understand it, putting all those together and keeping track and letting us know when they've been received. But again, we haven't really received any so far. So we will, you know, we can't take Facebook comments or Nancy on Norwalk comments as formal suggestions or requests of the commission. So I would ask that everybody please do that. We want to hear from people. We're not discouraging people from participating, but please just do it through the official channels so that we have a record.
I appreciate those comments, and that was one of the issues that I had wanted to address in the minutes, and that I corrected that statement made a couple of times during the meeting from members of the Board of Education, that our intent, our instructions was simply to bring the charter up to date with language and understanding. And I articulated, I believe, at least twice that we had other issues that we were asked to look at, and we were doing so. So with that, I think, Steve, if you could start us off this evening on Article 1, right?
Yes.
1A, yeah.
Let me, I was doing something here, a little cleanup. All right, so let me share the screen. Everybody see Article 1 up there?
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to make it larger?
Yes, please.
Because I cannot see what you see. For some reason, I'm not getting to do that. So let me make it larger. All right. So we could do this one of two ways, because we have some substantive issues we need to resolve. Do we want to discuss those first, or do we want to just go through it sequentially?
I would vote to go to the issues and let's get through those.
All right.
That's my vote.
I could
All
not
right.
understand what you said, Carl.
I said I would vote that we go to the issues and get through the issues.
Okay. Anybody disagree with that?
That's fine.
Okay, fine.
So
Ina,
the
you
first,
okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, let's go.
so the first issues are the section 3.3-3. Sorry. Nope, still wrong. So 3-3 C. Here it is.
Yep,
Those are the, everybody see it's in yellow? Pretty
Mhm.
easy. to
Yep.
read. So that's the issue of the future of the city treasurer, city sheriff, 3 select men or persons, and 7 constables. So we got testimony last week. I would say, Madam Chair, should open the floor for discussion.
Okay. All right, Tyler, do you want to start us off?
On those two, I'm looking back at my notes. I had to watch the recording, so I'm going to see what I wrote down
Oh, okay,
about those.
I can make some comments if you want.
Sure, Carl, go ahead.
Looking back at my notes and from what I recall, I mean, the constables, I think, there's no outcry that comes up, they come out of the charter or they don't exist anymore. I got the same feeling for the selectmen. Fraser, I kind of got the same feeling. The sheriff was the only one that seemed to want to keep the sheriff's position, since I guess there's only one anyway. And I base that also on the fact that if you all recall in the testimonies that they gave, and perhaps it can be done by ordinance or something else, but nobody knew why they ran for those positions other than they wanted to be involved, and nobody knew what to do once they got in those positions. So that also just leads Carl to the conclusion, why haven't?
Okay.
Carl, I thought that,
Benita?
yeah, the constables, I thought that the selectmen were the ones that weren't being utilized, but that the constables were.
There was one that really was adamant, and that was Ray Cook, that wanted to stay.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that some of them did not know what they were supposed to be doing, but I took that as an internal kind of thing, that they didn't get the proper instruction.
Well, they didn't, but they also didn't. I mean, if you run for an office like the lady that ran, she ran and didn't even know why she wanted to run, other than it was a slot that was open and she wanted to contribute to the city. Okay, I applaud her for that. But I did not get the feeling, and from what they really basically do, and the sheriff can also do this, serving papers for attorneys and this and that, that it was any big thing that they would die on the stake for one way or the other. That's just my feeling.
Michael,
I'll just-
Michael, Tyler.
Yeah, so in looking at my notes, Mr. Garfunkel, I took down, mentioned that he didn't think it needed to be, the selectmen needed to be on the ballot anymore. And then the, kind of different testimony from the constables. Mr. Cook said that he was doing things almost daily, serving papers, but that the rest of the constables didn't seem to have much to do, nor did they have any training or understanding of what it was they were doing. And then I think I think Steve may have mentioned that the constables can be appointed. Is that?
They can, you have that
can.
option, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that makes more sense then. So if we're going to be kind of cleaning up positions that there doesn't seem to be great understanding what most of them are doing, then perhaps if there is a need for a constable, and there does seem to be for serving legal papers, perhaps that's something that could be appointed, and then maybe there could be more control over the training and understanding of the responsibilities of that job on the city's side. So that you don't have to have it on the ballot, but it's still there serving a function that could be more closely tied to the city to set the person up with their actual role and responsibilities.
Okay, I'm gonna run through my thoughts on here. As far as the treasurer, we didn't hear from the current treasurer, and I have heard for decades that position really did almost nothing, if anything, currently. We did, Robert Burgess did come to the meeting. He came in after the Board of Education presented their concerns, and was spoke to us as we were leaving about that he wanted to continue in that, and that he served papers, or was able to serve papers as in the same capacity that the constables do, and that he was hoping that we would maintain that position. The selectman, I had also talked to another selectman that was not able to come to the meeting. That was Sharon
O'Toole?
O'Toole, who felt that it would be probably the best thing to do to eliminate selectmen, because they have no defined responsibility.
Yeah, she told me the same.
Yeah, so the constables, I thought one important comment that came out is not only do they not get any training, But there's no insurance that provided for them. They have to carry their own insurance. And
Right.
serving papers can be can be done in a hostile environment. And so that was a concern that I thought was well articulated by the people present. So my suggestion would be to eliminate treasurer and selectmen, and this time around keep the sheriff and the constables, and that can be addressed again in the next charter, which we're hoping will happen in 3 years, in our effort to establish more timely reviews of the charter. So that's my basic feeling. Do you want us to vote on these things tonight, Steve? Or
It's up to you. I'd like you to vote on everything tonight. It'd be easier to draft. No. So let me ask a couple of technical questions. One, and maybe Tyler knows this, is one of the more political people here. Is the treasurer up for re-election this year? Are all these positions up this year? They're all 2-year terms?
I don't know. I think it's just a 2-year, but I
Lots.
don't know.
I
Well,
thought
they're 2-year terms, but isn't
It would
November's
be
the
when city-
November's the
it's when
municipal
city-
election, so.
It's
Yeah.
with the municipal election.
Yeah, if it's with the municipal elections, it would be up this year.
All right, so this, we'll have to recognize that they will be up for re-election. The same time this charter will be up for action,
Yeah,
which means that if we eliminate a position, it would be effective for the election of 2025. I just wanted to
yep,
clarify
Okay.
that.
Thank you.
The other question I wanted to raise was with regard to the constables and the sheriff, Patsy, whether, Madam Chair, was whether or not somebody in the city should assume responsibility for training. Whether that's something that should be thought about, that both for training and for trying to provide them, if they're documents, although I don't think, somebody told me recently they didn't think there was a lot that the city had for service purposes, but at least to get some level of training in to find out how they can be trained. So that you may want to make that part of restoration of the provision or retention of the provision.
Well, I would agree 100% if the constables are retained, particularly in this environment at this day and age. I think the selectmen, I even think that newly elected council people should be trained for a little while because it takes them a year to figure out what's going on. And that's not a bad statement. I'm not knocking on anybody, but you can't just jump into things and not know what's happening. But I think it's also something to consider about all these positions, and it came up, and I don't know if Rick had mentioned it before, somebody in the last meeting mentioned it, but this could also save the city money as far as election money spent to run an election by deleting some of these positions that are being run for, and particularly if there's a tie, because if there's a tie, and there almost was in the last constable relation, or 2 constables before, where there was 1 vote that separated 2 candidates, and the 1 candidate withdrawal, and that's when Ray got the job. Withdrew, should say.
well, that's why I wonder if these couldn't be appointed positions, because they don't seem to be overly political positions. I mean, it sounds as though there's a need for some constables, probably not 7 constables. And then if you do it as an appointed city position, then you can include, it seems easier to include training if you're doing it that way.
Yeah. 2 comments. One is that
everything off the ballot.
Yeah, 2 comments. One thing, everything in this town is political. Second comment would be is that I like what you said about if we eliminated someone and went from 7 to 5, then you could do an appointment, or if you went to 3 or whatever it would be. But I think the only way you could do appointments is if you reduce the number.
But that seems like we need to do that anyway, right?
Yeah, I would think that there doesn't need to be 7, first of all. But I think that the ones that are there, that we decide how many there should be,
Mhm.
do need to have training. And I think that once they're trained, maybe the workload would be parceled out a little bit better. So that you don't have some that have all the work and some that have none of the work.
Right.
But isn't it dictated the work by the district that they represent?
No, no,
No,
It's
no.
not at all. So they,
Citywide,
so-
they're citywide officials.
so it's citywide no matter what.
They're not district representatives, no.
Okay, but each district has one.
That I don't know.
When the
Maybe-
elections occur, that it seems like it's not as on this ballot as a citywide, and I could be wrong, as opposed to be elected, but by district, but, and we heard in the last one, we know how District D replaced John Romano by virtue that the District D group got together and picked his son.
There's nothing in the charter that would indicate that they're elected by district. Perhaps,
No.
perhaps if they nominate people by districts, so that if there's a vacancy, the party defers to the district in which they've lost the constable, but it's not, that's by tradition, I don't think by charter.
Well, and since we're rewriting this, we could say that.
But
No,
there's a tag there that I think needs to be discussed or understood. No person shall vote for more than 4 constables.
Yes, so that tells you it's citywide, and that's how it
Yeah.
says it on the ballot, I believe.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Good catch.
So I think there are a couple of questions that need to be answered for us before we really vote on what we're going to recommend. And in reading some of the information on the Common Council's responsibility, I thought there was a reference to they're using a city sheriff. So I think we need to check that. I think I marked it up when we get to that section. I don't know if it came to you, Steve, or not.
I'm looking at this section here and
But knowing many of these people for decades, I've heard over and over again that the treasurer doesn't have any responsibility under the charter.
Didn't Henry say that also when he talked to us a couple of times?
Who? The treasurer did not participate in our.
No, our controller.
I don't
the finance
recall.
director.
Yeah, I
Our
don't.
finance guy.
But definitely, and 2 of the 3 selectmen said that
Mhm.
they felt that should definitely be eliminated.
Right.
And the constables, several of them are in favor of maintaining it with more equity between them somehow. Okay.
Is there
are
a
we
motion? Is there a
agreement on-
motion or?
Yeah, I need a motion to check out a couple of items and then we vote on it at the next meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Tyler
to
will
do
make that motion. Second, please.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Benita. All those of us in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I say aye because I can't see everybody on the screen. Okay,
Aye.
okay, so we will take that up at our next.
Whoa,
meeting.
whoa, whoa. What did we
Whoa.
just, what did we
What?
just do? I don't know what we just did.
There are a couple of issues we wanted to check out on.
What are they? So I can check.
One of them is the reference under the Common Council's part that I think are going over tonight. It has a
No,
reference.
no, we're not.
Oh, okay.
All right, here's what I'd like, if I may, you took your vote, the vote is then. At some point, we've got to vote on substance.
Yes.
We're
Right.
running out of time. And so my suggestion is that if, for example, if a motion were made along the lines that we've been hearing to repeal the treasurer's position, to repeal the selectmen, that's pretty clear, to retain the sheriff and retain the constables in some form or another. And we want to have some training component, and it would be effective in the 2025 election cycle. I think we need to start moving so I could draft something.
I
So-
agree.
I agree.
And
Okay.
they could be conditioned upon receiving more information, because then we can fix it.
That would, okay, fine.
Yeah,
That's-
see my point? I'm not trying to be,
Where I was basically headed, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, no, but I agree with you, Steve.
Steve,
I'm sorry.
all those in favor of doing it in the manner that Steve just articulated?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Everybody,
I mean, does that mean, can I just ask the question, can I make a motion that we get rid of the treasurer, get rid of the selectman?
That's,
I
yes,
think that's what we
Yeah.
just did.
that's what
Okay.
we were doing.
but you're right. And,
You're right.
you know, I would only make this general comment also, is that personally, my own feeling, if we eliminated treasurer, sheriff, selectmen, and constables from this charter is not going to rise and fall on passing on that decision. When it goes to the general electorate in November. I don't think.
I still think that we need the constables. The constables need to, I think that we do need them in some way, shape, or form. I mean, there were enough, I thought that there was enough information given about what they do, even though some of them don't do anything. The ones that do work do some valuable work. And I thought that's one of the things that Stuart Wells was saying too.
Yeah, well, we could check that. And I think what Steve said was that, I mean, we could eliminate the rest of them, leave the constables in, and then before this gets really finally drafted and goes to the final look and goes ready for the oven to be baked, we can put things back in or take things out before the final die is cast. Isn't that right, Steve?
Let me just bring this to a head here. We did take a vote to eliminate the treasurer and the selectmen.
Yep.
And so that's done.
And it's
we-
subject to getting more information.
Information on the
Yeah.
constables and the sheriff.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
exactly
So,
right.
Steve, let's move on then.
All right, so the next issue is right below here, is the term of office. And right now it's term of 2 years, and I think that the debate has been over whether we should be going to a 4-year term for mayor and what that means, or or an alternate term for the council. And so again, the floor is yours.
Okay.
Well, I'd made a
Let me
statement.
wait a minute. Let's, let me recognize people so we're not over speaking each other. So Carl, you can go ahead, but please don't just jump in.
Well, I had my electronic hand up, but that's okay.
Well, yeah, but that's the problem. I can't see them. That's the problem.
So all I
On my
was going,
screen. I don't know if you can change that on my screen, because I,
Has to stop sharing the screen. Probably.
yeah. See, I'm not seeing that.
all
Yeah.
right, so then we'll go to the old ways and I'll say, Madam Chairperson, can I I'll make a statement through the chair.
Yeah, you can
Well,
see.
we don't need it that formal. I just need to
Right.
be able to see what's happening here.
Mhm.
We're getting some tech support.
You can expand the smaller screen to see the members even with the.
I know, normally I have it in front of me, but
Yeah,
tonight it's not
I'm
there.
not seeing it. We're seeing it over there.
If you hit the plus on the,
Ah, there we go.
and then scroll over to
So there.
if you scroll, I don't know, if I scroll over, I can see.
Yeah, you can
Carl
see
and
everyone.
Anita,
Okay.
the two we'd need to see.
But these two you don't need to see. So there you go. That's probably what you need, right?
Okay. Okay, so Carl, you were saying,
What I was saying was that when we had this discussion, which was like 2 or 3 meetings ago, we got to the 4 and the 2. I had proposed that we do 4 years for everybody. I believe that Angela had said the same thing, I think. I think, Tyler, you agreed with the mayor, but you thought the council should still be 2. And I think that's where we kind of left it.
yeah, okay. Tyler, do you want to address that issue?
I still would suggest that, but I know, I mean, if it's, I think this is, I mean, this is one of the things that when this goes to the ballot would be pulled out, right? The total
Yes,
length.
right, right.
So I would hope that because we're taking, you'll have the kind of cleaned up charter with the less controversial suggestions. And then you'll have that as a separate issue. I would hope that that would be something that wouldn't be responsible for this not getting through, if that's what people didn't want to see. I mean, it's ultimately
Yeah.
up to the voters, is it, how long do they want the terms to be? I still would like 4 versus 2, but if it's something else, if that's the what the other people feel is best on the commission, that's fine. And ultimately people in Norwalk will make the decision.
Okay, Benita?
I would like, Tyler, can you explain why you think it should be 2 for the common council?
I like the idea that obviously there's no recall, there's no preventing the mayor from serving the full 4 years if that's what they're elected to do. I like the idea that if you have the option to change the council halfway through, you can do that. But I understand you could probably achieve that if you stagger terms. To me, it just seems easier to do the 2-year terms, and then have the ability to change it. I think the other part of that too, and this is not, intended to be a negative comment about anybody serving on the council, but serving on the council is a tremendous amount of work for next to no money. Right. So if you have somebody who gets in there because they wanted to do it, they wanted to make a change, and they realize early on, oh boy, this isn't for me, or if it's too much of a time commitment, 4 years is a long time to have somebody in there who may not be as committed as they were when they started serving. I think it's different for a mayor. That's your job. That's what you're paid to do. But I think 4 years is a very long time for a council role. It's unpaid.
Okay, I tend to agree with you too. I strongly feel that it's important to move to a term of 4 years for a mayor that would begin in 25, right? It would in that
Yep.
term, not this year. For some of the reasons that we talked about earlier, the practical reasons of how long it takes to get many major projects or new ideas before the public, and to get them accomplished in 2 years for mayors is virtually almost impossible. And on the other hand, having served on the council for several terms, I understand the amount of time and effort it takes, and I think it would be wise to do the 4 and 2 this term. And again, we could articulate that 4-year term for the council to be considered at the next stab at a charter revision in a few years. So we want to vote on that this evening, Steve? Yes?
It'd be great. And, you have 3 members who are not here. This will probably, they'll probably want to tail in, but at least for drafting purposes, it would be nice to have a consensus of where we are, so that at our next meeting, we can look at it one more time and people
Okay.
could raise their questions.
Okay.
So I would make a motion to support exactly what the chair just said.
Okay, thank you. I can see your hand this time, Carl. Okay, any other comments on the motion? Second to the motion?
I would second that motion. Yes.
Okay, Benita, thank you. So all those in favor?
All right.
All right, the 4 of us are in agreement. And Steve, in reading the effects that a 4-year term for the mayor, I did pick up a couple of places where we would have to make some just changes in, I think it was in the mayor's responsibilities. So when we
Absolutely.
get,
We'll get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously, yeah, and
Yeah.
this would not take effect this into 23. It would be
2025.
effect in 25. So this fall, this election would not elect a mayor for 4 years. And that's important to articulate.
So, thank you, Madam Chair. The next issue is in the same paragraph. And that's the commencement date for the term of office for elected officials, which is currently the second Tuesday after the election. I don't know why on this draft I did, first business day of December. People have talked about two different approaches. One is either going to January 1, which I think the mayor's office has chimed in to suggest, and others have talked about the first, it would be the first business day of, let's say, of January, or the first business day of December, for example, or mid-December. And the objective of having the longer time frame, and I'll also talk about something that I think could be helpful to, reducing comfort levels or increasing comfort levels with the concept of a longer transition, is Norwalk is a good sized city. And it's one of the larger cities in the state, one of the top 10 cities in the state. You elect a mayor in Norwalk, the idea of being able to start your administration, what is it?
2
A
weeks.
week after election is a real daunting task that really puts a new mayor against in a very, very difficult place. So one of the things I have suggested in conversations is one or two additional things that you might consider in this section, so that if you change the date tonight, I would draft language that would define these things. In New Haven, there is a transition office that is formally part of the charter revision, part of the charter document. They fund it. You don't need to fund it, but it gives the mayor-elect a place in City Hall, and actually council members elect a place in City Hall where they can obtain information in a organized way, where the outgoing administration and the staff of the council would provide them with data. It's not data that would be confidential, because they're not entitled to see confidential information at that point, but it would be public data, but it would be done in a way that is organized and sensible, so that when they start their terms on January 1st or December 1st, they'll be up to date. They'll know where the budget is, when the budget is coming, which is the first big thing everybody will be doing. And it'll give them a place to operate. The mayor can either fund it privately, some mayors do that, or some municipalities actually fund it themselves. The second thing that I would recommend, that I've seen in charters, is that during a period of time between the election and the commencement of the term, the incumbent mayor should not be able to appoint, hire, remove, terminate, discipline, promote, demote, or transfer any department heads, assistant department heads, commission members, board members, etc. Should not be able to make any of those moves. You see that very often. I've had some administration, some charters actually say that if an incumbent mayor loses a primary, that they lose that ability to make those changes from the time of their party primary through the end of the term. So that where it's clear that they're not going to be able to run for re-election. And so it extends that period. So I would recommend that you consider those two things: one, having a transition office that enables, because if you're going to extend the period of time, let's tell people why we're extending the period of time, because we think mayors and council members need to have more information. And two, mayors should not be able to take steps that would really bind the hands of the new mayor with appointments to boards and commissions, departments, etc. So you have a range of choices. You can pick any date you want, but I think the dates that people were talking about were the beginning of December, maybe middle of December, or January 1. Thank you.
Okay, so Carl, you have your hand up.
I do, thank you. So I agree with what you're saying there, Steve, except I think that when we originally talked about this, and could go back and look at the original papers, I guess, but I think we set it on the first business day of January. For a lot of the reasons that you just stated, to give the transition period.
Yep.
Because, I mean, you have the election in November, then you got Thanksgiving holidays, then you got Christmas. And I mean, people aren't really, focused. No one is, so to speak. And I agree with everything else. I think it should be in there that during that transitionary period, that the outgoing mayor works diligently with the incoming mayor to bring the incoming mayor up to speed so that the office transitions smoothly, and that there can be no personnel or head department changes or anything like that until the new mayor is sworn in.
Okay.
Yeah, and I
Benita?
don't know where the December date came from. My personal, I don't have a vote here, but my personal feeling is January, the beginning of January is the right time, but that's what I've
Yeah,
recommended.
the first business day.
First business.
Yeah,
Yep.
thank you, Steve, for your input.
Sorry.
Tyler or Benita, you want to comment?
I like the idea of January 1st or the first business day of January. I think that it also gives, if we're going to keep the Common Council, for example, at 2 years, it gives them a little bit longer time to get some understanding about what their job should be and how to do it and how to do it effectively and efficiently. So I think that would work out for everybody.
Okay. Tyler? you
Yeah,
want-
I was looking at my my notes from our March 15th meeting, and I had down the same thing that Carl did, which was that we talked about the first business day in January, which I think makes a lot of sense. I think it's just a general best practice to have a little bit more time to have the transition, and I wholeheartedly support the provision about not being able to make the appointments and things like that. A city that Steve and I know well and had worked in ended up eating quite a bit of money due to some outgoing incumbent
Yeah,
personnel issues. So I think it's again, a best practice and to the benefit of the citizens and the taxpayers to not have stuff like that going on.
yeah, that's an excellent point. You mentioned that Norwalk is a sizable city. I believe we're the 6th largest city
We are.
in the state.
I believe so.
And,
Yes.
and
we are.
I just for the fun of it, the last couple of weeks did some research, and not totally accurate maybe, but what was the size of Norwalk in when our charter was created in 1913? And the figures that I came up with was about 25,000 people. And I know there's different opinions of where we are right now, but I've also heard that we're close to 93,000 now. Some of the stats say less than that. So we are a sizable operation that has a lot of responsibility to all of the citizens and taxpayers and residents of Norwalk. So originally, I didn't like the early January, because I was concerned about what could happen in the interim. But with having the clause in there that any kinds of major changes to personnel and other appointments are not allowed during that time period between the election and the first business day of January. So I like that idea, and Benita now has her hand up to make another comment.
Just to ask about the primary situation, should that be included or not?
Yeah, I don't know the answer. You might want to think about it. Because you also have the other situation where a mayor announces he or she is not running. And so the real question is, when do you want to make a mayor a lame duck? Now you could tie it to a primary, or you could tie it to a time frame, and maybe establish a waiver if there's an emergency, if some department head dies or something like that, or whatever the case may be. Maybe the council could provide a waiver, but you could put a date on it and not tie it to the election itself. Whether it's tied to a primary day or a date sometime in the last 2 or 3 months of the term, you might want to establish a firm date for the restrictions. I can take a look.
How much time is between the primary and the election? Is it like 6 weeks?
Well, the primaries are usually, our municipal primaries in September or August. I'm trying to remember now.
Yeah, I am too. That's why.
So it's
I
8
think
weeks. If it's,
I think it's September.
if it's September, it's about 8 weeks. And so, so maybe it's after September 15th or something like that. And you have to hope that if the mayor loses a primary, the mayor's not going to do a bunch of things between the primary and September 15th. But a mayor could lose a primary and still run as a third party candidate, for example, or a petition candidate. So maybe it's a date, maybe it's a time frame as opposed to a cycle of election. And you basically say that after a certain point, you might want to restrict it. I could take a look. I mean, you give me
Yeah.
authority that you want to go there. I'll
Yeah,
take a look.
I
and see
was
how-
thinking, I feel it's getting a little complicated, and when it's complicated, many times people will just vote no. Because they're concerned about, they don't understand how something is going to function. So I'd like us to get a little more educated on that concept, Steve. But I think
I'll drop some language,
that we do want to move forward with the 4-year term for the mayor.
That we did that already. What about
Yep.
the first day of January? Do you want to vote on?
January, yes,
Yeah.
First business day.
first
First,
business.
first
day.
business day, transition office, and the concept of a restriction on
Right.
action.
Yes.
All right.
Correct.
And I'm sorry.
Somebody needs to make a motion.
Yes, one quick question on the I really like the idea of a transition office, and I'd have to imagine it wouldn't be too difficult to find space in City Hall for them to meet, but we wouldn't, we're not including anything about how it's funded or if it's funded. Is that correct?
I wasn't proposing it. There's only, New Haven has one. I think they do fund. It's not a huge funding amount, but they do fund. Again, I can take a look and see if there's any other models.
Yeah, I mean, I would be in favor of just saying, something along the lines of there will be office space available in City Hall.
Exactly.
But then nothing, it wouldn't be funded by the city, at least
Well,
not.
Yeah, office space available and cooperation of the incumbent mayor with the.
Exactly.
Okay,
Got it.
all right, what's next?
You want to take a vote?
We need to vote on
I
that,
thought we-
Matthew?
Yeah,
I would
Yeah.
vote on it.
Need a motion and a vote.
all right, it's gotten complicated, so.
All right, So I think the motion is that you have the commencement of the term on the first business day of January, a transition office, office space available to the new mayor, new members of the council, and cooperation from the mayor, the outgoing mayor, and the leadership of the council during the transition, and that there should be language which I will supply to you regarding restriction of action of a mayor who is in the lame duck phase of his or her term,
Okay,
lack of a better.
all
more
right.
refinement.
So will one of our members turn that into a motion, please, a recommendation?
I'll make a motion that we vote on what Steve just made.
All right, thank you, Carl. Second, please.
I'll second.
Well, both other people seconded, so all of us in favor?
All right,
Aye.
All right, it's unanimous this evening. Okay, thank you. We can move on to the next item.
Can I just ask one question, Patsy? I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Just, Steve, can it possibly be included in that, even though the motion's been made and stuff, that all elected officials, all newly elected officials?
Yeah, I said mayor and council. I mean, it could be Board of Ed.
Yeah, I'm just
Is that what you're
thinking, I'm going back to the constables, people like that need to get there and find out what's going on. It's just all elected officials could be
New elected officials.
newly elected officials.
Yeah. Yeah, it's principally the mayor, but it's all elected officials. Okay, if that's okay with everybody, you're gonna vote on the final version anyhow. But I think I can do that easily enough.
Okay,
All right.
Yeah, everybody.
I just have one quick question for Steve, and I don't want to drag this out into a discussion. And I don't even know if it's legal, but I don't, we're talking about a transition office. Should that occur and there's any expenses that come up, could it not be in the charter that if, the winning party pays for the transition office?
No,
No, you don't want to,
I
You know,
don't think that's a good
as a
idea.
rule, I like to keep parties out of charters.
Okay,
I think you have too much of that in there already, but I lost my argument when I read a statute that said the secretary, that registrars of voters are selected by the town committees of their parties in the event of a vacancy. So
Okay.
my argument of purity went out the window. So,
there you go.
all right.
Okay,
So the
Next.
next, in our agenda, the next item that we have is
The succession,
it's success, not success, well, succession is part of it. I thought we, let's go back to succession for a minute. I think we agreed that the succeeding to the mayor would be the president of the council.
Correct.
And I thought we already, that you had
Yeah.
already said that.
We
Yeah.
did.
we did.
Yeah.
I thought we did.
I don't know why I had mayoral succession in here, because it's really the temporary disability issue. But I think we agreed on that already.
Mm-hmm.
So the temporary disability section is right here. And it's a pretty robust provision. I'll walk through it a bit with you because it is a process. Some municipality, so the easy one is notification. So, if the mayor notifies the president of the council that the mayor is unable to attend to the duties of office to an absence, and there's a contact requirement to be able to be in contact with the people in the local government, or temporary disability or sickness, the president becomes the acting mayor during that period of time. Doesn't have the ability to appoint or remove officers, employees during that temporary period of time. The more difficult section, so that's a pretty standard provision. A lot of charters end there. And I will say this honestly, I'm not inviting you to eliminate all this language I'm going to talk about right now, but if it hasn't been a problem, I see a typo in it. If there hasn't been a problem, then, and Patsy has a rule. I'll define a rule as keep it simple, and I won't use the S word that ends with it, that has a T, UPID, that follows it. But keep it simple.
The KISS
and
rule.
so- yes. And if you think this gets complicated, I'm willing to accept that. I have put this in a couple of charters where they really wanted it. I've advanced the language for your consideration because it is a more complete protocol for dealing with a disability that the mayor refuses or fails to notify the city of. So if the mayor does not notify, and members of the council, members of the Board of Estimate, members of the Board of Education, the private citizens in the town feel that the mayor is not up to his or her job by reason of absence from the city, an unexplained absence, and or a temporary disability or illness, the council can, by a determination of 12 of their 15 members, so it's a very high standard, make a determination based on findings. Subpart 1 here is an examination by 2 physicians licensed, to practice medicine in the state of Connecticut, that the mayor is unable to carry out his or her duties. The council has the ability to take those findings and make a determination that the mayor is no longer able to serve the position on a temporary basis. And so it's a best evidence presented by competent authority, and it's a very high majority vote required on the council. And to terminate it, the temporary vacancy is the mayor notifies the council president of his or her return to office from, let's say, if it was determined because the mayor was absent, that's an easy one. With respect to temporary disability or illness, the mayor would have to have confirmed by the two physicians that he or she is able to return to office, and then the clerk notifies the president and the mayor resumes office. Absence is defined if the mayor is able to communicate in contact with the chief of staff and president of the council by electronic or voice communication, the mayor's not absent. So if the mayor is at an international conference of mayors in Bogota, Colombia, the mayor may want to say to the council president, I'm away for a little bit, you preside, you're the acting mayor, etc. But if the mayor doesn't, but the mayor can be in touch with chief of staff or the president of the council and the president of both president of the council, then the mayor is not technically absent. And it would not be possible to determine that the mayor was absent if those two things can be shown. Now, both of them have to say they're in touch with the mayor on a regular basis and that the mayor is able to communicate to them, etc. And then it allows for the council to establish an ordinance to set up the procedures. We're not going to set up all the procedures in the charter for determining a sustained absence, and council compensation for the acting mayor would be determined by the council, but in no event shall exceed in proportion the salary of the mayor, I think. And then the status, if the council president is acting mayor, there's no vacancy in the council the council member's seat. It just, the council member is just not participating as a member of the council, would simply be participating in the role as acting mayor. And when the mayor returns, the council president returns to his or her seat in the council. So that's kind of
On
where it
that
goes.
point, though, and that point, would that throw off the plurality of the council in voting? If the council person is serving as.
It could create, it would create a potential tie vote. We have 15 members on your council, right?
Yeah, right.
You'd be 14-14, but the mayor gets to break a tie.
Yeah, but I'm saying if the mayor's not in place and the president of the council,
Well, the president's acting as mayor has the president's tie-breaking vote.
yeah, but so that person has two votes?
No,
No, the council president doesn't act as a council member when
When they
he or
become-
she
Yeah,
is acting as acting mayor. So if there's a vote on the budget, the council president who is acting mayor can only vote on it if there's a tie.
right.
The council president cannot have his or her vote as a member of the council because his seat is absent. He or she is absent
Right.
from participating as a member of the council. However, if it's a 7-7 tie, the acting mayor can break the tie.
Okay, so on that kind of concept, on the first page of this section, in B, filling of vacancies, the term there is used ballots rather than votes. And I hadn't seen that the ballots used in any other part of our the work that we've been doing.
What's that?
It's B, B,
Oh, it's
filling
above
of
it, okay.
vacancies. The last sentence, a plurality of ballots on the council. Not, everything else is votes. Or just plurality. I didn't know why the word ballot is there.
There it was. Okay.
Pardon me?
Filling of vacancies, Steve.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah,
Whoops. I'm looking, let me see my hard copy.
B, it's, you gotta go up.
Oh, I see.
You see it?
Yeah.
I just thought that was out of line with everything else that and people would say, why is that different? Is there a difference?
Well, no, that's your current language in your charter, so I can
Yeah.
change it.
Yeah,
I didn't
okay,
change the language. Yeah. The, what's new there is the title. This was in the body.
Yeah.
So a plurality of votes on the council.
yeah, okay,
Yeah, I have no problem with that. I just didn't change something like that because,
yeah, well, it just jumped out at me and I thought, well, people questioned that,
yeah, whatever you want. Well, that's an easy change. You need, I'll make that change as a net change. So you don't need to vote specifically on that, but I'll make that change.
And
Got
down on 3, there's just a typo, other elected public office.
Got it.
Okay, so.
So let's get on the substance of 3-7.
Yeah, right.
What's everybody's thinking?
Yeah, is 2 quick questions, I guess, on this part. Steve, on the part that says absence defined,
Yep.
and I don't know if it's just maybe adding a couple words, but it seems that it reads in defining absence, it's saying what it is not. Right? Can you go to that section? Sorry, I don't have it.
I'm looking, okay. I was looking at it in my hard copy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's my fault. I'm working off of the screen today. And maybe it defines it somewhere else, but it just read as a little bit funky because
It's, are you
it's just saying,
talking
it's saying,
3,
but
7?
absence from the city shall not constitute, right? So would it? I mean, maybe you leave that.
Well,
in, but it's-
if the mayor, well, you can say in the event the mayor is in contact with the chief of staff and the president of the council by voice or electronic communications, the mayor now shall not be considered absent from the city.
That's what I was thinking, right? So if an absence defined would be, right, if you're saying the mayor is not in contact with the chief of staff and the president of the council, they are considered to be absent, rather than absence shall not be being in contact. You see what I'm saying? Like we're defining it as what it is not versus absence would be saying an absence is defined as the mayor is not in contact with the chief of staff or the president.
All right, but so if I said in the event the mayor is in contact, the mayor shall not be deemed absent?
No, I'm saying take out the shall not and move that to if the mayor is not in contact. Because right now we're defining it as absent. We're defining absence as what it is not, rather than what it is. If the mayor is not in contact, they would be considered to be absent.
In the event the mayor is not in contact with the chief of staff and president of the council by electronic or voice communication, the mayor what,
Is absent.
It's absent,
Is considered
Yeah.
absent?
considered absent.
is deemed to be absent.
Is deemed to be absent.
Yeah,
Got it?
And then I guess my question on F, the compensation.
Yeah.
If the acting mayor,
But
if the
shall-
acting mayor is in place and they're being compensated in an amount not to exceed the amount that the mayor would have received, is the mayor also being compensated?
Presumably. I don't think you're gonna eliminate the compensation for the mayor during that period of time.
During a period
So
of
he or
absence?
she is still employed. Now, what you might do here with an acting, because I served as acting mayor on numerous occasions when I was president pro tem. And I never asked for compensation. I think that there was some level, but I never asked for it. This is the situation, is you might say that something about in the event the acting mayor is expected to spend full time during this period or something like that. Because if it's simply a function of getting a few calls from City Hall, should there really be a compensation standard at all? So, it's a good question, Tyler. So, if you have some thoughts on it, we should play around with it.
well, an example, for instance, an automobile accident and the mayor is hospitalized for 6 months. or what we went through with COVID is another example of what can possibly happen. But that, doesn't it say that that there'd be an ordinance to cover that?
There's an ordinance covering the procedures. The question is, do we want to have a start time, a time frame attached to the compensation?
Like for 90 days or something like that.
Yeah, I'm taking a look here. I mean, these are all,
You know, that's
you know, in
really.
the beginning, we have the
That's really
30-day
difficult.
standard.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
if the president, you know, has a full-time job of their own, and is trying to do this job at the same time, running the city, that's a lot to expect. So,
So in the beginning of this, there's a 30-day standard.
yeah,
So it does kind of address the issue of whether this is temporary, you know, whether this is a fairly major encroachment on the president's time. After 30 days, the acting mayor can exercise some of the responsibilities to appoint and remove officers or employees. So maybe we establish this, that the 30-day timeframe, and substantially full-time service or something like that. I don't know. I'm you know, it shows the complications of these sections.
Yeah.
I've tried to winnow it down to the basics, but those are good questions. I think the 30-day time frame makes sense, that if you're doing it for 30 days or less, really, you're the council. If you get elected council president, there's an expectation of two things. One, you could be doing this on a temporary basis, and it might be somewhat sustained, or you can actually be mayor. You could succeed in the event of a permanent disability or a death or an election to the US Senate or something like that, that you would become mayor. So if you're running for council president, you'd be running with the knowledge that you could be mayor. And so you need to think about that when you do it. So
that's a good point.
Oh, Patsy.
Anita, you have a question?
Wouldn't it also be determined by the type of disability that the mayor may have?
the
That was
disability
point.
would have to be, the disability, I think, as it's stated, would have to be one that rendered the mayor unable to perform the duties of office. So if the
And-
mayor broke a leg and was out for a few days, but was going to be in a cast in a wheelchair for a month, that's not a disability that either he or she or the council would deem to be a disability. The mayor should be able to govern with a broken leg. I'm sure Dick Blumenthal is planning on returning to Washington with his broken leg and serve as the United States Senator and vote. The disability has to be something, Benita, where the mayor would be rendered incapable of performing the duties of
Well,
office.
that's exactly what I'm talking about, though. If the mayor is, shouldn't that compensation be based on, or can the compensation be based on not just time, but also the duties of the office? If the mayor is totally disabled and that person has to take over
All time.
full time,
Until the disability goes away.
if it ever goes away.
Well, if there comes a point where you may have to talk about utilizing the removal provision.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But I'm
Um,
just saying in terms of time and disability. I mean, it may be, I don't know. If the president of the Common Council has to take over completely, should it be 30 days or should it be within 2 weeks that they actually begin to be compensated for it?
Yeah. Yeah, I had the 30-day standard as determining what the temporary disability is. Yeah, it would just seem to me that once you hit, the way I look at it, once you hit the 30 days, that's the threshold. Even if you're doing it full time within 30 days, the expectation is, I mean, you could reduce that to 15 days. You can do any number of days you want. The idea is to have a rule of reason, a reasonable rule that allows you to make a reasonable judgment that this is fair. If it's 2 weeks, 14 days, 15 days versus 30 days, because that's the trigger that there is a temporary disability that requires them to serve, then maybe the compensation kicks in whatever that day is. The presumption is the mayor's unable to serve. So that's the presumption of the whole section, is the mayor cannot serve.
Mhm.
And so the question on compensation is when does the acting mayor get paid for that office? You could do that earlier. You may not have to tie it to the 30-day disability standard. You could go for a shorter period if you think that's fair.
Any other comments?
I'm leaving it up to you to come up with a reasonable standard. There's no right or wrong legal issue here. It's just really a judgment call that you have to make.
Any more comments?
Does everybody like the concept, or is it too complicated? A lot of charters just leave it at the first stage. If the mayor says he or she can't be there, and that's it. The rest of it, you're in another world. And I think it's good to have a provision so that you have this possibility, you can deal with this if it occurs. And I have to tell you, I can't think of any circumstance where this has been utilized in my lifetime, my adult lifetime, but maybe there were things that happened that didn't hit the press that we didn't know about in a community. But in the political community, you tend to know what's going on if somebody's got a problem. So that's the reason I recommend having that second part of it, where the council with a supermajority can make that determination.
Right.
I like it better defined.
Okay.
Or more defined,
Meaning,
meaning all the stuff that we have in it, I think should stay. I don't think it's too complicated to understand.
okay, good. All right.
Right. Anybody else have any other opinion? 'Cause
I agree with that.
Yeah, I do too. And Tyler, okay, we're fine with that.
Good.
Okay,
I'll play around with the time frame and give you some language there, and I'll fix
All right.
Tyler's language. Good.
all right,
That's that.
okay. So
Okay,
now
all
we're
right.
doing,
Well, we're
C.
done with the big things. Can we jump? Because the other substantive issues came up at with the Board of Education last week, and they're at the end of this section. So I'm going to
Okay.
move to Article 9.
I'm gonna go to
9.
All the way at the end. It's not quite this far at the end, it's page 30. We have a couple of issues that came up that I want to talk to you about. Here we are. All right, so they didn't raise anything on 9-3. They did raise an issue regarding compliance and cooperation, the next provision. Hold on, I'll get you there. This one. Do you recall they had two questions on both of these sections, 9-3 and 9-4 and 9-5. If you recall, and I'll defer to the chair, we were both in the room when this was said. They thought that the compliance and cooperation provision was directed at them, and that it was intended to be condescending toward the Board of Education and the school superintendent. My response to them, and I'll make the response to you as well, is that this is simply a repetitive provision, that we have cooperation in the budget section, which includes the Board of Ed. I'm going to actually suggest to you that we approve a general cooperation provision at the beginning of the charter in section 2-5C, that again talks broadly. So chapter 10 would address budget, but chapter 2 would address broad cooperation standards for all boards, commissions, departments, officials, etc. And with that, I would recommend deletion of 9-4. The intent here was not, the intent more or less was bootstrapping. The intent was not specifically directed toward the Board of Ed, but really was, the concept was to just reinforce the position of the charter. But if it's stated in 2 other places, and it's actually stated other places as well, my recommendation is that we simply remove it from this section and rely on its presence in the budget section and in the opening section of the charter in Article 2-5.c. I would do that.
I do recall, obviously, that was a concern, and we tried to allay their fears of the intent. But can you pull up that first section that defines everybody that this covers? Because I remember when we started with that, we added several times the Board of Education.
Yep, hold on, it's not in this section, it's not in.
Because along with this concern, they were questioning the term departments and how they fit into generally whether they are defined as a department.
Well, they are a department.
Well,
That-
I'm reporting what I recall.
No, I got you. Hold on.
Yeah, she's right.
Is this the budget? Do you see the budget in front of you?
Not well.
Article 10.
Or no, I'll make it larger. I just wanted to make sure it was there.
Yeah, it's there.
Okay, let me just view,
I see I
zoom.
I see Board of Education.
There it is. Yeah, it's all there. It's right at the very beginning of the budget process.
Okay.
Including the Board of Education and the Norwalk Public Schools. Remember, we're calling it the Norwalk Public Schools. That was your choice. So that's where that is stated. And what I'm proposing, and I don't have the language drafted yet, is that I would also place it in section 2-5 at the beginning of the charter. Just a general, we have a section there where we talk about transparency, public access, all that kind of stuff. And I thought the notion of cooperation of all of our government entities with the public and with each other was an important principle to lay out there. And if we have those, I think we can take this section out, is my recommendation. Is that all right?
Any comments from our
Anybody
commissioner?
else need to see this, or should I go back to the other document?
Can you go back to the other one quickly?
I will. I'm trying to manipulate my mouse here for some reason. Here we go. Stop share. All right. All right, let me get back on. I've always called myself a mechanical moron, so I'm always thrilled when I can get these things done. Okay, back, and I'll make sure it's is it large?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so we're back. So that's my thought.
I'm fine with that. It wasn't intended to insult anybody. It was just common language that we were using throughout the charter.
Yep.
But as long as it's general and everybody's covered, I'm comfortable with it. Any comments?
So am I.
Yeah, I'm fine. I did,
I'm fine with it.
having had the experience of seeing the reaction before I saw the meeting, I thought it was gonna be much more controversial than it was. If it's they
It's
want
pretty
that-
innocuous, yeah.
It is. I mean, and if they wanted, I don't know, if they wanted out, take it out. It's covered in that other part. so-
Yeah. Well, that's my view on it. Why pick a battle over something that is,
And that's not our intent. So,
I-
okay.
It's exactly right. The intent
It's
is-
not our intent, and that's the important piece here.
Yep.
So, okay,
Right.
let's move on.
All right, so everybody's in favor of
take
that?
out. Everybody's in favor of taking it out of having it, in the.
Okay.
in the
So then,
overall.
the next point of contention and issue with our language, whoops, was in the next section, which I just jumped over. I was trying to bring it to center it on the, whoops, centered on the screen so you could see it in its entirety.
9.5.
There you go, you're 9.5. So this was a big issue at the beginning of the night. And the superintendent made a point that they have reduced staff and they don't have ability to do these things and get this information to us. They were worried about confidential information. If you look at the last clause, and I did say this to them, that there are contracts that may be exempted from disclosure, not capable of redaction, but they really weren't focusing on that. So when I suggested, and I think I talked to the chair, to Patsy about this afterwards and others, is what the information that, the reason I recommend this language is you want to make sure that boards of education are not committing public city funds for multiple years. That's the intent of trying to get your hands on all of these agreements. And so I have suggested, I raised it at the meeting, their council seemed to be comfortable with the approach I was taking. I would like to narrow this to contracts, MOUs, MOAs, letters of understanding, all the stuff I have in here, which could encompass arbitration settlements, arbitration agreements, all sorts of things, so that the mayor and the council and the board of estimate know what kind of long-term commitments that they have the ability to make are being made, so that they know that there's been a massive settlement in a labor matter that will cost funds, and that they may have the ability, I'm not conceding, they have the ability to sign a collective bargaining agreement. The monetary portions of collective bargaining agreement regarding pensions and things like that have to go to the city. Likewise, any contract that is a multi-year agreement has to go to the city. And I wanted to narrow this to make sure that we capture those multi-year agreements. And I would have language in here that addresses any items that are put out for bid for multi-year bids, because the way they obscure multi-year agreements is they will do a procurement for a multi-year contract. They'll enter the contract for 1 year with an option to renew. And so I want to capture those renewal provisions. I don't want to discourage them from doing that. City could save a lot of money. And if they're doing it to save money over the long term by giving a vendor a multiple year agreement, share that information with the legislative body that has the ability, with the mayor and the legislative body, which has the ability to approve the multi-year agreements and save the city money over the course of time. But it's a decision you have to bring to the general side of government. So my proposal would be to narrow this down so that we're capturing the multi-year contracts, basically.
Okay,
I would also be willing, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Are we talking both operating and capital budget?
No, the capital budget, they have no choice. They don't control the capital budget.
Okay.
So the capital budget
Okay,
is,
so this is
so
just.
architects,
operating.
yeah,
But my-
architects
my point
contracts.
was gonna, yeah, okay, I
Yeah.
got it. My point
They're all
was gonna
covered.
be that when we deal with capital budgets and we have the 5-year projection, this is very similar to that concept, that we know
Excellent.
what the exposure is.
Excellent explanation, Madam Chair. That's why you're the chair. No, absolutely. I agree completely. They're already covered. I think they already understand that. I'm looking on the operating side principally. I'm not going to distinguish because we want to make sure they send those architects contracts to the legislative body. Again, we don't want them to enter into a 5-year bid for an architect and then do a series of 1-year contracts under it with their options. the city government should be making those decisions about multi-year agreements. And now my view is like on things like special education, I don't know if we need to require them to provide those at all. That's something I'll leave up to you politically. Ultimately, if there was a scandal, you could access that information. It would be public. It might have to be redacted, but it would be available. But for purposes of whether it's quarterly reporting, twice a year reporting, and maybe the quarterly report is too much, I don't know. The idea of the quarterly report is to capture things before they become a problem. I mean, I will almost make it a monthly report, but because you're reducing the number of documents that they have to deal with, but you're making it clear what you're looking for. You're basically saying you have a long-term responsibility. The Board of Ed doesn't have that legal ability. So I would recommend, I'll come up with the language for our next meeting. I'll pare down the language to make it clear that we're looking for multi-year bid contracts as a result of multi-year competitive procurements.
Yeah, and I don't think that was clear in our last meeting. I think a lot of people were confused by it. So your clarification, I think, will be very helpful.
Oh, no, this was broad, Madam Chair, this was intended to be broader. I'm narrowing it down as a way of overcoming their objections.
Oh, okay.
I thought that one of their biggest objections was the quarterly part. That they didn't have the staff. I thought that's what was being said. They did not have the staff to do reporting.
Yes, and that you're absolutely right, but that was because there were hundreds and hundreds of contracts if you're covering all. If you're limiting it to multi-year, that's a different ballgame.
Okay.
If they're still going to raise it, that's a lot. We want to know where they are. How come they haven't been approved by the council? So I would not walk away from the quarterly. In fact, if we weren't involved in a fracas, I would go to monthly with reduced contractual obligation. But I think quarterly is fine. I think that was the source of their concern, is that it was a huge volume. I don't disagree with that, although other communities, I have provisions like that, no one complains. So, but
Do they comply?
Do they conform?
Do they
I'll
comply?
check. I think, yeah, a lot of communities, they do comply. Yeah. You establish a protocol. I mean, that's all. That's why I said to the superintendent, look, if you need a time frame for compliance, I can recommend to the commission that we make it effective the beginning of 2026 or 2027 or 20, whatever the year was. Didn't seem interested in that. But this one's a much easier way to approach it. And it gets what we're looking for. The major thing is to make sure that they are recognizing that it's the local government, the general government, that has the ability to bind the community long term.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Next.
Everybody okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. All right. We'll take final votes when we take final votes, but the next issue I want to address, Madam Chair and members, is the other issue that, this is not the budget process, but they did bring it up. Correct me if I'm wrong, Benita and Patsy and Carl, who were all at the meeting, and Tyler, of course, who listened to the tapes. The superintendent was talking about coming up with an alternate schedule in the budget for Board of Education contracts. Now, we haven't seen anything at this point, but it just seems to me that they were kind of searching for an exemption of the current process for all the departments. And I think we spent a lot of time, you spent a lot of time, and I helped you, going through the linear process for the budget. And I just can't, I suppose we can wait and see what she has to say, if she does have something to say, But I wanted to just remind everybody that was, I think that was the last request that was made that evening, and I could be correct, I stand corrected if I'm wrong. But my strongest recommendation is that I think we did a lot of thinking. And there's one other issue related to the budget. And I don't know how we can make that change. But the one thing I said to their lawyer in a conversation I had with him was, look, let's see how this works. If this charter is adopted and the charter passes, actually, it's a member of Attorney Mooney's law firm, Matt Ritter, who's the Speaker of the House, got legislation through several years ago that allows the legislative body of the town, of the city, to alter their budget schedule, basically have a charter revision, changing the dates of their budget schedule without going through a charter revision process. They can just do it by action of the legislative body. And so if there is a problem or there is a better remedy, I said to him, you have another place where you can go. You don't have to go through a full charter revision. You could bring it to the council and say, we think this is better. Let's try this. So my thought on it is I would rest on that, that kind of change could be made. The other issue that she raised was wanting to have, and I think council raised it as well, a greater role in the capital projects process. And I've reminded her council that there's a Supreme Court case that made it clear that the capital budget process is a general government process. It's not a Board of Ed. It's not like their budget where they get to control the line items. They, as a department, Madam Chair, they are a department. As a department, they make their proposal to the process with the planning board, the Board of Estimate, the Common Council, and those bodies make the final decisions. Now, if they come in with a proposal that says, we would like to make sure we have a role at any public hearings, fine. But they are not a participant in the citywide decision-making that has to be made by the planning board, the other boards that are involved. And so that's the other issue that's going to come up. I've not seen anything from them on that issue, but I wanted to remind everybody that those were two other issues.
Steve
Thank you.
or Pat,
Yeah, go ahead, Benita.
I don't know if you said this when I was gone, but I think they also said 2/3 vote of the Common Council for appropriations was too high.
That's in the current charter. That's not
Okay.
a new, yeah, that's in the current charter. And it's not an appropriation. It's a 2/3 vote for an additional appropriation. So that if in the budget, so if during the course of the fiscal year, not within their budget, they could do whatever they want within their budget. But if during the fiscal year, they come to the city and say, we need an additional appropriation, just like any other department, because this happened or that happened, or we want to do this, or we want to do that. That standard, which is currently in the charter,
For all departments.
it's for all departments,
Okay,
is there. Their attorney in their statement that they made to you implied that they had the ability to operate under this other state law. I would disagree. I think the law that he was citing dealt with boards of selectmen and other organs of town government. And I don't think it really applies where you have a charter as we do with these provisions. So that's not a new, we'd have to change the current standard, which you're entitled to do, but it's the current, no one saw the section there. And I said that to him after the meeting. I said, that's in the charter. It may be buried in the wall of words, but it's there. I didn't make that up. That's not new. Thank you. Good,
Steve,
good, good.
Okay, I'm sorry. I also had the impression that there was a timing issue with how their timing against the rest of the city's budget. They were looking for a different timing.
Yeah, that's what I discussed earlier, that they're
Okay.
looking for an alternate schedule that would put them in a different place than other departments. And my conclusion on that is you put a lot of thought into the budget schedule that we approved. It's the one chapter we've approved. And as I said, Tom Mooney's partner was responsible for legislation that allows the city council to make those changes. And my recommendation is, let's go with the charter that we're proposing. If they want to make changes in the schedule, there's an easier way to do it without going through a full charter revision. You can go to the city council and they can change, literally amend the charter by city council action for the sole purpose of changing the schedule for the budget. That's it. Can't do anything else. They can't change the players. They can't add participants. They can only change the schedule.
But from a practical point of view of putting the budget together for the whole city, if you're not putting all the pieces of the puzzle together simultaneously, that seems to disrupt the whole process at the end and distort it and make it more complicated than it already is or needs to be.
If we were in a house of worship, I'd say amen. I guess I just did in a public place.
Okay.
Or hallelujah, depending on.
There you go.
So, do we get more clarification from the Board of Education, more response in writing from them?
We haven't heard from them yet, but I would like to tell them, I will draft the language for you. When it's prepared, I will send it over to their attorney. I think that the changes that I've recommended that you've approved will be very well received, at least by council. And I think probably by a substantial majority of the Board of Education. I don't want to, reveal confidences in our conversations, but I think that, and I felt comfortable at the meeting that the majority of people in that room on the other side were nodding their heads when we were talking about the modifications that we've talked about tonight. So I would hope that would be enough. And if it's not, if they really want to go in a different place, that's really a political decision they have to make. But I think it'll be fairly well received, is my instinct.
All right.
Right.
Okay.
So that's it on the items that are
On
that
our
are
agenda.
that are significant. The rest of it is just, we don't have to take a final vote tonight, but what I can do is I can clean up the sections we talked about and have this ready, and hopefully you'll have more members at the next meeting. We will be prepared to vote this particular provision, out. It's again, none of this is final until after the second public hearing in May, when you're going to send this thing to the council. But at least I think we've moved the.
This is what we want to present.
Yeah, I think we moved this forward quite a bit. And with this section, unless people have definition issues, I'm going to use the definitions here now and start cleaning up the document with the definitions that are in this section that have been in here for several months that I hope everybody's had a chance to look at. So I feel very comfortable with the progress we made on that.
Okay. So you had sent out a calendar for April through June. And I think it would be helpful if we hone in on this and we talking about trying to have a work session on a Saturday and potentially, actually it's this Saturday, right?
This Saturday, the 15th, tax day.
At 9 o'clock.
So what I've suggested is that the next step will be an approval of this. I would like the next meeting, if it is a Saturday session, to go over Articles 4 and 5, the council and the mayor. I don't think those are difficult sections to go through. Get your thoughts on those sections. I would hope to have some updates with the actions we took tonight and the definitions. I hope to have those cleaned up. And then, so we're looking at the 15th, if you can do it. We still have 3 members who are not here.
But the 4 of us that are we available?
Yes.
On Saturday?
Yeah.
And I have to run Little League practice at 11, but I could be here from 9
9?
till 10:30.
Okay.
All right.
Or we can start
I'm
earlier than 9.
available.
Yeah, we could, just
Benita,
depends on how soon Steve can get down, because if we start at 8:30.
I
Mhm.
can do, I'll just do it. That's all.
okay,
I could be here earlier than 9 as well.
You
okay.
know, I know I
Carl?
look, I look
Yeah,
like
I'm fine.
Methuselah,
8:30 is fine with me.
All
I look like Methuselah, but I can wake up in the morning and get down there.
All right, so
right,
we
so-
get that out to the members that aren't here
All right,
tonight.
so we'll discuss Articles 4 and 5. And that's great. And then next week, on the 19th, you're gonna start with public comment, right?
Mhm.
And then after that, I would
And
hope,
that's comment, not hearing.
I would hope that at that meeting on the 19th, after we would have time to either discuss what we didn't resolve on Saturday and begin to get into the 2 sections you do not have, which I hope to have in your hands by the end of this week, at least one of them, if not both, boards and commissions and departments. So for the 19th. And if we do that, my hope will be, I know you've all been waiting for this. At some point, I'm going to take all these sections and consolidate them into what looks like our charter. And I know Angela's not here, but I'm
Without
already,
red and yellow,
what's that?
without red and yellow ink.
I'll try to do that. It's not red or yellow up here. Oh, when I do a red line, you're gonna see markups. I mean, I'll send you a clean document. It might be easier to work from the clean document, but at some point, we're gonna have to do a red line to show everybody what we've done.
No, but to work, I think it's easier to.
I'll send you both. You guys make a choice about whether you want, I'll send both a clean document and a red line.
Okay.
Because in Word, you can click it in and out, whether it's the edited version or not anyway.
No.
So my hope is that
Somebody needs to teach me how to do that.
once we get through those 2 sections, hopefully for the meeting after the 19th, the meeting on May 3rd, we will be looking at the complete charter document.
Hmm.
And then just to give you an idea, is my general rule is I'm going to continue editing this document until the final action by the Common Council in August. Because presumably this will go through August, where they take a final action. So we're going to send it over. It'll be pretty clean, if not very clean, when we send it over to them the beginning of June. But while it's with them, I'm going to continue to fix nits. They're going to come up with whatever concepts they have. And when it comes back to you, unless they approve it, I will continue to draft and clean. But I'm hoping once we consolidate it to do a run on all the definitions, I'm hopefully to the chair's satisfaction, getting rid of the seds and the suches.
And the he's
What?
and the he's.
The ease.
He's,
He.
H-E.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Plural.
And also gender neutrality and all that stuff. So I'm really trying to get that taken care of. And it's difficult with the current, because I'm still using, even though I say we're drafting this from scratch, as you'll see from the annotations, this has a lot of what's in the current charter because we're not changing the structure. And it doesn't make sense to write from total scratch because you're then, who knows what you're missing. So we're getting there. So if it's okay with everybody, hopefully I'll have a turnaround on chapters 1 through 3, 6, and 9 well before Saturday. Deal with that initially, and then we'll do council and mayor.
Okay, Steve, on another language thing, the notice versus what's the term, warning? Warning? What's the archaic term for notice?
Oh, warning.
Yeah.
I
Is
can
that-
take care of that.
I don't know how people feel about that, but warning seems have
Archaic.
a negative connotation.
Little dire. right?
Yeah,
Rather than just-
yeah.
Yeah, there you go. It's more
Notice,
dire.
I
It's
mean,
like
what's a
warning.
warning, you know?
Well,
Flashing lights and stuff.
well, you just voted to keep the sheriff, and it's the sheriff who goes out there as the high sheriff provides a warning with, he goes out with a staff. No, I'm just joking. It's,
But anyway, that's another one.
I'll fix warning, Madam Chair.
Okay.
But,
I don't know if anybody else has picked up any of this, things that keep coming up. Okay.
all right,
All right. Anything else anyone would like to bring up?
I just have one question, just so I'm clear, and maybe I missed that, I was writing notes down here. So Steve, you're saying that we would have a public comment on the 19th of April?
that's what the chair, that's the public comment that we've been moving.
Yeah,
Right.
it's not a hearing. They.
When
it's
you say
just a
public comment,
welcoming For them to.
that would
bring up
be for the
anything they
public to
want.
come and comment, correct?
Yes,
Yes. So my only request would be is that would we have our position for what's going to go in the charter for commissions and charters and appointed things like that ready by that time?
no. You will have it ready for the public hearing in May.
Okay,
We're still in formation with this document.
okay,
So it requires, inform members of the public to take a look and see the things that have been approved, the direction you're taking, and to talk more generally about things.
Okay.
We did public hearings, by the way, back in the fall, and
right.
and have had other public comment opportunities. And so I think that the chair really wanted to try to reach out and see if we could motivate the public, but at this point, we want to make everybody mindful of the fact, and I made this point to the Council for the Board of Education, that they were invited to come here last fall. And, and we invited them here on a specific matter, and now they're raising a lot of new things. We're at the end of the process, guys. We're not at the 11th hour, we're probably at the 9th hour. And,
Okay.
but we're getting there. And so,
I only bring it up because
it
I
doesn't mean-
think that's a big issue with people, and I would just be interested in what people say about it. That's all.
And my concern is I'm frustrated that we have not been able to get more any coverage in local papers.
Well, there isn't any local
Well,
coverage.
anyway, that's a frustration. So this gives hopefully our public some opportunity to come and. tell us what they
do we
think.
have staff capacity on Saturday morning to broadcast this? And for
I,
Betsy, you may want
Larry,
to check on that, and make sure that's taken care of.
Oh, to make it a public Zoom link that people could
yeah,
come in on? Sure.
we want to have a meeting at 8:30 on Saturday morning.
And you wanted a hybrid Zoom meeting?
Yes,
We'd be able to have it recorded.
So there'll be people in person.
I will be in person.
You
I
I'll
think
be in
there'll be a,
person.
I think there'll be
I thought you
in-person.
wanted, I thought you wanted all of us to be in person.
I do.
And where's?
Well, that we
But
have,
if somebody,
it would,
yeah,
it should be here at City Hall someplace. Do we have to check with the city clerk on that?
Yeah, you'd have to check with city clerk, yes.
And the only room that can do this is the room you're in.
Yes,
Um,
mechanically.
that,
But we met downstairs when we.
that isn't entirely true. How many would you have in person? Because there's an easier setup. Is it public participation or no?
Not on
well, it
Saturday.
would be open to, you couldn't deny the public access.
Right,
The
But-
public has to have access, but there's no public comment
so
component, I don't believe.
one of the other rooms, 231 or 101, could work with just what's called a meeting owl. It would be an easier setup and
Yeah, but you can't do a Zoom call or people on a Zoom or a link in any other room but this one, right?
No, we did it.
yes,
did a
we
meeting
can.
Downstairs on.
Oh,
it was the
okay,
same
so that's
board meeting
changed.
When we weren't allowed to be in here 2 weeks ago, or it was 3 weeks. ago.
yeah, I mean, this room is a larger setup for we could do it in one of the other meeting rooms, but you
Okay.
have to check with the city clerk.
Okay, so, and have her talk to you about how to make this happen. You know.
Yes, I'm
IT
not so
wise.
sure what my schedule is, but
Okay,
I don't know if Owen is available, but we can discuss it
okay.
later. Yeah.
I had one other question. I just wanted to be clear for the meeting on the 19th. Where we had invited the public to come and comment. They would be allowed to come on anything they'd like, correct?
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
not limited to certain agenda items.
That would be my hope.
Yeah, I think
We want to hear from them.
agreed. I think what would probably make sense, I know we haven't had a ton of in-person comment yet, but I think, or even if it's on Zoom, I think we would maybe do what they do during the budget process, which would be limit people to 3 minutes
Yeah. Mhm.
to keep it moving. And then if people have more they can't fit in, they're more than welcome to send it in email or the comment page or whatever. But I just wanted to be sure that people knew they could comment on anything they wanted. And also that, you know, by the time of that hearing, we're not going to have a red line version of the, you know, the original and then the proposed ready for them to comment on. The idea is they could come and comment on anything
On
that's
concepts.
concepts, things that are near and dear to their heart. I mean, we have agendas and minutes, and there's a fairly extensive amount of information available online that if people that, you know, have been presented at the meetings that are available to people through the website that they can comment on. But this, you know, I don't want there to be any confusion that this is, you know, that we're not making available a red line of the two documents. That's not the intention of this meeting. That'll happen
No.
another time.
We want to
but
make
not
sure that
tonight.
we're covering and addressing anything that is of concern.
Anything of concern, that people are welcome to comment on, but understand that won't be at this time.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because there will be people, if it's a public comment, will comment and probably ask us questions if we're looking at such and such or not. And then they would suggest that we do look at such and such, whatever that might be.
Which is
I
great.
could
because
give-
that's what we're looking for.
I could give you my opinion now what the number one thing would be, but we can't do that.
Okay, anything else?
Steve's smiling.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, Benita,
Second.
makes a motion to adjourn, second. Tyler, second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Good work, everybody. Nice
Patsy,
seeing you.
before we go, Patsy, make
Yes,
sure
ma'am.
we know what room we
Yeah,
are
Well,
gonna.
right now, we don't know, so we'll have
Yeah,
to,
check that out.
we'll have to get it on the website.
Okay,
Yeah.
Well,
'cause
let's
we
do it.
don't
It's
know
gonna be warm, so we could do it remotely in the gazebo on the green.
All right, guys, I'll see you later.
The roses
Thank
are
you.
starting to bloom there.
Bicycle.
Jesus.
Nice.
Um,
Mike.
yeah, I